They blamed her womb and destroyed her life, but the truth came back to destroy them, the house stood proudly at the edge of the city, tall gates, polished floors, quiet rooms that smelled of wealth and order. From a distance, anyone would say Angela was fortunate. She lived in comfort. She wore clean clothes. She never missed a meal. To the world, her marriage looked like a blessing many women prayed for. But inside those walls, warmth did not live there. Every morning, Angela rose before sunrise. Not because she wanted to, but because silence demanded it. She moved softly through the house, careful not to disturb her mother-in-law, whose presence filled every room even when she was not speaking. The older woman believed respect was proven through obedience, not kindness. And Angela learned, very quickly, that nothing she did was ever enough. Her husband, Daniel, was polite in public and distant in private. He spoke gently to others but rarely to his wife. At the dining table, his eyes stayed on his phone or his plate. When his mother corrected Angela, he said nothing. When Angela lowered her gaze, he pretended not to notice. They shared a bed, but not a bond. Angela often wondered how two people could live under the same roof and feel like strangers. Was this what marriage was meant to be? In that house, love was replaced by rules. How to sit. How to serve. How to speak. Angela learned to smile without joy and apologize without knowing her crime. Her mother-in-law watched her closely, measuring her worth in silence, already disappointed by something she could not yet name. Sometimes, Angela stood by the window and watched the world outside, women laughing, children running, life moving freely. Maybe if I try harder, they will see my heart, she told herself. But trying harder only made her quieter. No one asked how she felt. No one noticed how her shoulders bent a little more each day. Her pain was invisible because it made no noise. And in that house, only loud things mattered. At family gatherings, her mother-in-law praised the house, the food, the family name, never Angela. Neighbors admired her calm nature. She is lucky, they whispered. Angela smiled, even when her chest felt hollow. Because in that home, respect was demanded, but love was never offered. And slowly, without shouting, without blows, without open cruelty, something important began to disappear. Not furniture. Not money. But connection. Angela did not yet know it, but this quiet distance was only the beginning. The absence of love would soon turn into blame. And patience would soon be mistaken for weakness. She lost a child, but what followed was far more cruel. The pain came quietly at first. A dull ache that Angela tried to ignore, because hope had already been fragile. When the bleeding started, she knew, before the doctor spoke, before the walls of the hospital room closed in, that she was losing another child. The second time hurt differently. Not because the pain was stronger, but because the hope was weaker. She lay on the hospital bed staring at the ceiling, her hands resting where life was supposed to grow. Nurses moved gently. The doctor spoke softly. But no one could soften the emptiness that settled in her chest. Angela did not cry loudly. She did not scream. She only turned her face to the wall and let the silence hold her grief. When she returned home, weak and hollow, she expected comfort. Even a single kind word would have been enough. It never came. Her mother-in-law did not ask about her pain. She asked questions that cut deeper than knives. "What kind of woman fails twice?" she said, her voice calm but sharp. "How long must my son wait for an heir?" The room grew heavy as every eye turned toward Angela, not with sympathy, but judgment. Daniel stood there. Silent. Again. Angela's loss was no longer a tragedy. It became evidence. Whispers filled the house. Plates clinked at the dining table as conversation stopped when she entered. Her mother-in-law spoke openly now, no longer hiding her disappointment. She reminded Angela of other women, fertile women, strong women, women who could do what she could not. Angela wanted to explain. She wanted to scream that she had tried, that her body had fought, that her heart was broken too. But her voice felt small in a house where grief was not allowed to be seen. Was losing a child not enough? Late at night, Angela sat alone on the edge of the bed, staring at the dark. Maybe I am the problem, she thought, the words heavy and cruel in her own mind. Daniel never asked how she was healing. He never held her when she woke from sleep soaked in fear. Instead, he avoided her eyes, as if her pain embarrassed him. As if her loss had stained the family name. Soon, the words changed. They no longer spoke about miscarriage. They spoke about failure. About usefulness. About whether a woman without children was still a wife, or just a burden. Angela learned that day that in that house, her value was not measured by her heart, her patience, or her loyalty. It was measured by what her body could produce. And when it failed, so did she, in their eyes. She lowered her head and returned to her duties, carrying grief in silence once again. But something inside her shifted. Not anger. Not rebellion. Just a quiet understanding that love in that home came with conditions she could never control. She endured quietly, not knowing silence was sealing her fate. After the second loss, the house changed. Not in shape or size, but in spirit. The walls felt colder. The air felt heavier. Angela woke each day knowing she was being watched, not with concern, but with judgment. She knelt to clean the floors her mother-in-law walked across without looking at her. She served meals she was never invited to enjoy. She stood while others sat. These were not spoken rules, but everyone understood them. Respect in that house had a posture, and Angela had learned it well. Each act of service was followed by correction. The food was too salty. The floor was not clean enough. Her voice was too soft. Her silence was too loud. No matter what she did, it was never right. And still, she said nothing. Angela believed patience was strength. She believed endurance would soften hearts. She believed that if she remained calm, respectful, and obedient, her husband would eventually see her pain and stand beside her. But Daniel stood beside his mother instead. When his mother scolded Angela in front of visitors, Daniel looked away. When harsh words filled the room, he adjusted his shirt. When Angela's eyes filled with tears, he pretended not to notice. His silence was not peaceful, it was permission. At night, Angela lay awake listening to the sound of his breathing, wondering how two people could sleep so close and be so far apart. If I stay patient, this will pass, she told herself, holding on to hope like a fragile thread. But patience, without protection, becomes a prison. One afternoon, as Angela knelt to serve tea, her mother-in-law laughed softly and said, "A woman who cannot give children must at least know how to serve." The words settled in the room like dust. No one challenged them. Daniel remained silent. Angela felt something break inside her, not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. She realized that humiliation had become routine, and her suffering had become normal too. Them. Was patience still a virtue when it erased your dignity? Angela did not shout. She did not cry. She quietly collected the cups and returned to the kitchen, her hands trembling just enough to notice. Her silence was misread as acceptance. Her obedience was mistaken for agreement. In that home, kindness was seen as weakness. Endurance was taken as consent. And patience became the excuse others used to continue their cruelty. Angela still hoped. But hope was getting tired. She did not yet know it, but the greatest wound was not caused by her mother-in-law's words. It was caused by the man who was meant to protect her, and chose not to. That morning, she lost her home, her marriage, and her name. The morning arrived colder than usual. Not because of the weather, but because something final hung in the air. Angela sensed it before a single word was spoken. The house was unusually quiet, as if it was holding its breath. She was folding laundry when her mother-in-law called her name. Not sharply. Calmly. The kind of calm that carries no room for discussion. "Pack your things," the woman said. "You will leave today." Angela froze. Her hands tightened around the cloth she was holding. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. Surely, there would be an explanation. A conversation. Something. There was none. Daniel stood nearby, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the floor. He did not look at Angela. He did not ask if she was well. He did not ask where she would go. Angela's voice came out small. "Why?" Her mother-in-law did not answer the question. She simply turned away, as if Angela had already become invisible. Is this how a marriage ends? Angela walked slowly to the bedroom that no longer felt like hers. She opened the wardrobe and realized how little of her life actually belonged to her. A few dresses. A pair of worn shoes. A small bag. Years of marriage reduced to items she could carry in her hands. No money was offered. No transport arranged. No concern shown. As she packed, her heart raced, not with anger, but fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of starting again with nothing. Fear of being unwanted everywhere. Maybe if he speaks now, I will stay, she thought, her hands trembling as she zipped her bag. But Daniel never spoke. When she stepped into the living room, her mother-in-law handed her the bag as if returning a borrowed object. There were no tears. No raised voices. Just rejection wrapped in calm authority. The door opened. Angela stepped outside, the sun too bright for the heaviness inside her chest. She turned once, just once, hoping to see regret. Hoping to see doubt. Hoping to see her husband. The door closed. Not slowly. Not gently. It closed with certainty. Angela stood there for a moment, holding her bag, feeling the ground beneath her feet as if she had never stood on it before. The house behind her remained silent. Life inside it continued, untouched by her absence. She walked away without looking back. Not because she was strong, but because she had no choice. That day, Angela learned that love without loyalty is fragile. That patience without protection leads to abandonment. And that a woman can be discarded without warning when her worth is decided by others. When everything was taken from her, survival became her only choice. Angela walked until her legs ached and her thoughts went quiet. The bag in her hand felt heavier with every step, not because of what it carried, but because of what it represented. She had no home to return to. No husband to call. No plan beyond the next hour. By nightfall, she found temporary shelter in a small church hall, where kindness came without questions. A thin mattress on the floor, a shared blanket, and the soft hum of other broken lives trying to rest. It was not comfort, but it was safety. That first night, sleep refused to come. Angela stared at the ceiling, listening to unfamiliar sounds, wondering how quickly life could collapse. I must not let this break me, she told herself, holding back tears she could no longer afford. The next morning, survival began. She washed her face, straightened her dress, and stepped into the streets with quiet determination. Angela went from shop to shop, office to office, asking for work. Not favors. Not pity. Work. Some turned her away without listening. Others looked at her with suspicion. A few looked at her with kindness, but had nothing to offer. Rejection followed her, but she did not stop. Days turned into weeks. Angela learned to stretch small meals into long days. She learned to sleep lightly. She learned that pride could not feed you, but dignity could carry you through hunger. One afternoon, she found work helping at a small private school, cleaning classrooms, assisting teachers, caring for children who reminded her of the life she had lost. The pay was little, but it was honest. And for the first time since being sent away, Angela felt useful again. The children noticed her gentleness. They trusted her. They smiled when she entered the room. Slowly, something inside her softened. Not grief, but bitterness. Angela chose not to hate the people who had broken her. She chose not to curse her past. Each day, she showed up, did her work, and returned to her small room with quiet pride. Was survival not also a form of strength? Some nights were still heavy. Some memories still hurt. But Angela learned that rebuilding did not happen in loud moments. It happened in small choices, to wake up, to try again, to remain kind in a world that had been unkind to her. She no longer waited for an apology. She no longer hoped to be called back. She was building something new with her own hands. Step by step. Day by day. Someone noticed her strength where others only saw failure. Time passed quietly, the way healing often does. Angela settled into her work at the small school, no longer just helping, but teaching. She spoke softly to the children, guiding them with patience that came from pain she had learned to carry gently. The classroom became her refuge, a place where her voice mattered and her presence was welcomed. The children loved her. They listened when she spoke. They ran to her when they were hurt. In their eyes, Angela was not broken. She was safe. One afternoon, a man stood at the doorway of her classroom, watching silently. He was older than most of the parents, dressed simply, his posture calm. His name was Samuel, a widower who had come to pick up his niece. He noticed the way Angela knelt to a child's level, the way she listened before correcting, the way she smiled without effort. He did not interrupt. Over the next weeks, their paths crossed often. Small greetings turned into brief conversations. Samuel asked about the children. Angela answered carefully, never speaking about herself unless asked. He never pressed. He never pried. And for the first time in a long while, she felt seen without being examined. Samuel had known loss too. His words carried gentleness, not curiosity. When he spoke, there was no judgment behind his questions. Only interest. Angela found herself relaxed around him, though she did not understand why. There was no urgency. No expectation. Just ease. One evening, after a school meeting, they walked together for a short distance. Samuel spoke of his late wife with respect, not bitterness. Angela listened, her heart heavy but steady. She did not feel compared. She did not feel measured. Is it possible to be known without being tested? She wondered quietly. Their connection grew slowly. No promises. No labels. Just kindness, repeated. Samuel admired her discipline, her calm strength, her ability to remain gentle after everything she had endured. He never asked about children. He never asked about her past marriage. And Angela noticed something else, he never raised his voice. He never made decisions for her. He waited. For the first time, Angela experienced a relationship that felt safe. One where respect came before expectation. Where silence was not punishment, but comfort. She did not rush her heart. She did not fear it either. Sometimes, healing arrives disguised as ordinary kindness. The truth arrived late, but it arrived loudly. The hospital smelled the same as it always had, clean, quiet, and heavy with memories. Angela sat on the edge of the chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She was not afraid. Not anymore. This visit was not about fear. It was about certainty. The doctor spoke calmly, flipping through reports and test results. His voice was professional, almost casual, as if he were discussing something ordinary. "There is nothing wrong with your ability to conceive," he said. "You were never barren." The words landed softly, but their meaning struck hard. Angela blinked. For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood. She asked him to repeat it. He did. Slowly. Clearly. Her miscarriages had not been her fault. Her body had not failed. The losses were tragic, but not proof of worthlessness. Not evidence of weakness. Years of blame collapsed in that single room. Angela felt her chest tighten as emotions rushed in all at once: relief, grief, and a quiet anger she had never allowed herself to feel before. Not because she wanted revenge, but because the truth had been denied for so long. How many nights had she cried in silence, believing lies that were never hers to carry? The doctor continued explaining, but Angela barely heard him. Her mind traveled backward, through humiliations, accusations, and a door that had been closed in her face. All of it had been built on ignorance and cruelty. So I was never the problem, she thought, the realization both healing and painful. As she left the hospital, sunlight warmed her face. For the first time in years, Angela walked without the weight of shame on her shoulders. The truth did not erase her losses, but it restored her dignity. And the truth did not stay quiet. Word traveled quickly back to the family that had cast her out. Test results were shared. Whispers spread. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. The certainty they once held cracked. Her former mother-in-law grew restless. Daniel avoided mirrors. The foundation of their judgment began to crumble, piece by piece. They remembered every word they had spoken, every silence they had chosen. But Angela did not run to them with the truth. She did not demand apologies. She simply continued living, with her head held higher than before. Because truth does not beg to be accepted. It stands. And sometimes, it arrives too late to save relationships, but just in time to save a soul. For the first time, love asked nothing from her body. Angela did not rush into love again. She had learned what haste could cost. This time, she moved carefully, listening to her heart instead of fear. With Samuel, there were no demands, no timelines, no expectations spoken in heavy tones. Only understanding. Their courtship was simple. Walks after work. Quiet conversations. Shared laughter that did not feel forced. Samuel never questioned her past, and when Angela chose to speak about it, he listened without interrupting. He did not offer solutions. He offered presence. That was new. When Samuel asked her to marry him, it was not a declaration of ownership, but an invitation. He told her she was free to say no. Free to take time. Free to choose. Angela said yes, because this time, her choice was respected. Their wedding was small. No grand speeches. No public expectations. Just vows spoken softly, with intention. Angela felt calm as she stood beside Samuel. Not anxious. Not afraid. Calm. In their home, her voice mattered. Her opinions were heard. When disagreements came, they were handled with patience, not power. Samuel never raised his hand or his voice. He protected her in rooms where she was not present and honored her when she was. For the first time, Angela felt safe. She noticed how different her body felt too. How her shoulders relaxed. How sleep came easily. How laughter returned without effort. Healing was happening, not through words, but through consistency. Was this what love was always meant to feel like? One evening, as they sat quietly together, Angela realized something important. She was no longer bracing herself for pain. She was no longer measuring her worth through sacrifice. I am allowed to be loved gently, she thought, tears forming, not from sadness, but relief. Samuel loved her for who she was, not for what she could give him. Children were a conversation, not a condition. Her body was not a test. Her past was not a stain. And in that peaceful love, Angela became herself again. She did not forget her past, but it no longer defined her future. The ones who measured her worth now faced their own emptiness. Life moved on for Daniel, or so it appeared. After Angela was sent away, the house filled again, this time with a new wife chosen quickly, carefully, and proudly. She came with approval, with celebration, with hope that this marriage would erase the shame they believed Angela had brought. At first, everything seemed right. But months passed. Then years. And the child they waited for never came. Doctors' visits replaced celebrations. Whispers replaced confidence. The same rooms that once echoed with judgment now carried worry. The same mother who had spoken with authority began asking questions she had once ignored. Test results arrived quietly, just as truth often does. This time, the problem was not the woman. Daniel sat in the same silence he once offered Angela, but now, it crushed him. He remembered how easily he had believed the accusations. How quickly he had looked away. How convenient it had been to let someone else carry the blame. Regret does not arrive loudly. It comes in moments, alone in a room, staring at the floor, hearing echoes of words you can never take back. How could he have been so certain, and so wrong? His mother grew restless, her voice losing its sharpness. The confidence that once defined her faded into fear. She remembered Angela's quiet endurance, her obedience, her patience. And for the first time, doubt entered her certainty. We judged her too quickly, Daniel thought, the realization heavy and humiliating. The family's new life began to crack. The marriage strained. Conversations turned bitter. The peace they expected never arrived. The blame they once placed on Angela had nowhere to go now. And in the middle of that regret, news reached them: Angela was doing well. Married. Respected. At peace. The irony burned. They had measured her worth by her womb. They had discarded her without mercy. And now, they sat in the emptiness they had once wished upon her. But Angela did not celebrate their pain. She did not watch from a distance with satisfaction. She simply lived her life, untouched by the regret chasing them. Because some lessons are not taught through revenge, but through consequence. Some doors stay closed, not out of hatred, but self-respect. Angela heard about them long before she ever saw them. The apologies being prepared. The messages drafted and deleted. The regret that had finally found its voice. Friends hinted. Neighbors whispered. Even strangers carried news she had not asked for. They wanted to see her. They wanted to explain. They wanted forgiveness. But Angela did not rush toward the past. She stood in the present, firm, calm, and whole. The woman who had once begged silently for protection no longer existed. In her place stood someone who understood the cost of peace. One afternoon, a letter arrived. The handwriting was familiar. Her name written carefully, as if care could erase years of pain. Angela held it for a long moment, then placed it on the table, unopened. What would confrontation give her now? She had already healed. Already rebuilt. Already learned that dignity does not require an audience. I do not owe my peace to those who broke it, she thought, her heart steady. Angela chose silence again, but this time, it was not forced. It was chosen. She did not seek revenge. She did not demand apologies. She did not need to hear regret spoken aloud to validate her worth. The truth had already spoken for her. Her life had answered every question. With Samuel, her days were simple and full. Shared meals. Quiet evenings. Respect woven into every moment. There was no space for old wounds in a life built on calm. Sometimes, forgiveness is not about reopening doors. It is about closing them gently and walking away without bitterness. Was walking away not also a form of strength? Angela carried no hatred for those who hurt her. Only clarity. She wished them no harm, but she would not invite them into a future they had once destroyed. Her patience had taught her endurance. Her kindness had taught her restraint. And her dignity had taught her when to stop explaining herself. This was not a story of revenge. It was a story of growth. Angela did not win because others suffered. She won because she chose herself, without anger, without noise, without regret. And in that quiet victory, her story found its ending. Patience shows strength, kindness shows character, and dignity knows when forgiveness is no longer required.